when you tell a business like, hey, I can help you make X dollars conservatively, here are the projections, and here's how I came about the number, then people believe them. It's not hard to close a deal.
Hey, podcast listener, you're about to discover insider tips, tricks, and secrets to making more sales and converting more prospects into customers with email marketing. For more information about the Email Marketing Podcast or the Autoresponder Guy, go to dropdeadcopy.com/podcast.
It's John McIntyre here, the Autoresponder Guy. I'm here with Neil Patel from QuickSprout. Now, Neil is the co-founder of Kissmetrics, Crazy Egg, and Hello Bar, and he was actually on the podcast a while back to talk about content marketing. Because I had a bit of beef with content marketing. I needed to clear it up and get some expert advice on why it works and when it doesn't work. And but really, the reason why I brought Neil back is I've been reading some of his posts, and there's been some fascinating stuff about how to close big consulting deals. And it's got nothing to do with, putting together nice proposals or, polishing up your sales skills. It's things like spending $162,301.42 on close, and how that translates into bigger deals, or, having a luxury apartment and different things like that. So it got me curious, and I thought, man, it'd be fun to get Neil on to have a chat about some of this, some of the stuff that no one really talks about when it comes to, that I've found anyway, with this kind of stuff. So we're going to have a chat about consulting and clothes and Ferraris and all the stuff that you need to apparently get some big deals. Neil, how are you, man?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you on, man. Good to have you on again. So I've done a sort of a quick little intro there. Can you give the listener, I mean, if they've been listening to the podcast for a while, they're probably going to be pretty familiar with who you are, but can you give just a short background on who you are and what you're up to at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm just a serial entrepreneur. I like creating products for marketers. And I also blog on the spare time at quicksprout.com and neilpatel.com. Some of the products I've created are like Kissmetrics or Crazy Egg or Hello Bar.
Yeah. Cool. Easy. So lately you've been putting out, so QuickSprout, Dan, you mentioned it's a sort of like it's a spare time project, is it?
Yeah, it's like a personal blog. So I just really enjoy blogging.
Yeah.
Eventually I'll end up releasing a business model from QuickSprout probably in the next 5 months.
Yeah.
And it'll all start making sense. It'll be another software company.
Okay.
And then for that reason, I started blogging also on neilpatel.com because I always want a personal blog, right?
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. I didn't even know you had that was neilpatel.com. I have to check that out. So
it's brand new.
Brand new.
Very
huh?
few posts.
You know what I've been liking?
Yeah.
I've been checking out your some of the way your copy works on your pages, or the way it's designed. Do you design these pages yourself? You got someone doing that?
No, I have a designer.
Yeah. Because they're very well put together. The way you've used the copy and the design, especially I like the consulting page. When you get this nice little graph, and the way it just goes through, man, it's very clean, very tight.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. And then so Neil Patel's brand new, and that's just so you can have a personal blog.
Exactly.
Okay. So what's let's talk a bit about the close, the spending. I mean, you spent $162,000 on clothes, as a test run to see if it, got you more clients, right? And it turns out it did. More clothes, watches. You even mentioned a Ferrari. Can you tell me a bit about your experience with that?
Yeah, so when I moved to Vegas, I lived across the mall. And I live on the Strip in Vegas, so it's not the best mall. And reason being is it's all luxury goods, right? So everything's expensive. And you start buying stuff, and I was like, it'd be fun. What was if, I bought clothes and that, because I was already starting to buy some clothes here or there, because, when I need suits or tuxedos or whatever. And I'm lazy, so I'm going to go to the place that's just, within the complex versus driving somewhere, right? I don't even have a car.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be fun to just, see if I can actually help or make more money from it. Because you see all these other people who look like they're, wealthy executives and they dress wealthy. I was like, you know what? Let's give it a shot. Because I don't believe the clothes make a person. But the reality is people do judge you based on how you're dressed. And the fancier I dressed, the more money I started making. It's actually funny. When I released a blog post, people actually started emailing me a month to 2 months later. And they would be like, hey, Neil, just want to say thanks for that blog post. I decided to get a few $1,000 wardrobe, got some nice shoes and a nice outfit. And I wear it to my business meetings now. And boy, has it made a huge difference. I continue to get compliments on my shoes, and people want to work with me because I look more successful. And I was like, this is awesome. It's not just me who's finding it to work. Other people are as well.
Wow, okay. Now, I wonder this because, when I was thinking about this, how could I apply it? Because I personally, I don't meet clients in person. I'll go, because I've been living in Thailand, I'm in Canada right now, but I'll usually do something on, via email and then Skype. And so maybe there's a video chat, which is usually rare, but say there might be a video chat where I'll put on a nice shirt or something, but I suppose it's probably a bit hard to tell if you're wearing, a $10,000 shirt on Skype. But I wonder if this same principle applies to, like, if you're trying to charge big money, the $100,000 or $500,000 for deals, it sounds like the whole image has to be congruent. Because a guy that's charging $500,000, he's not going to wear stuff from Target.
He could. I actually wear a lot of stuff from Target. Target's legit. Like they have a lot of stuff at a good deal.
Okay.
But nonetheless, you're right. People don't believe that they'll shop at Target, so they wouldn't want to spend any money with them, right? So you got to dress the part. It's just like if you go into a big law firm who's supposedly like the best lawyers at something, would you really want to pay them if they were in shorts and T-shirts? Sure, if they're good, why not? But people have this image lawyers should be dressed in suits and they should be well presentable. So it's like, same goes with realtors. If you're buying a home and you're buying a $5 million home, would you want a realtor who's driving around Toyota Camry? And I myself don't care, and I would. But most people wouldn't. They want that realtor who has a nice car and all that because it shows that they're supposedly successful, right? Or at least that's a perception others have.
It's a really interesting thing because, like, on the one hand, it kind of makes you feel a bit annoyed at humans or just the way our brains work. Because, on the one hand, it makes a lot of sense because it's the way we're constantly scanning for incongruencies. So if someone's trying to charge $5 million for a house or $500,000 for a contract, if we're going to spend that much money, we need to know that we're going to get a return. And part of that evaluation procedure is to, does this guy's image, does it fit with the $500,000? Is he dressed the way a $500,000 deal guy would dress? Or is he dressed the way, a school teacher would dress? Because if he's dressed like a school teacher, then our brain probably just feels uncomfortable paying a guy like that $500,000.
Exactly, right? Because you're like, wait, if he looks like a school teacher and he's fully successful, why doesn't he have the image to go with it? Now, you don't need everything, but it all helps.
Yeah. And because you mentioned clothes, you've got, you mentioned a bunch of clothes, like shoes. What is it? $1,790 up to $5,000 for shoes. You've also mentioned the Ferrari. So, like,
so my buddy, we were racing Ferraris around a track. My buddy took a picture of me in a Ferrari, and it got posted somewhere on the web.
Yeah.
And people assumed it was my car, and someone hired me. And it made me $1 million in commissions, like a lead gen business, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, this is silly, but all right, they're going to hire me because they think I have a Ferrari. I didn't say I have a Ferrari. I ended up telling them. But I got a good business deal out of it, right? Because it was like, oh, we sell luxury cars. You have a Ferrari. You can relate with us. Like, let's do business together.
Okay. Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. It's actually interesting because I've been reading this book called Richistan. Have you heard of it?
I have not.
Okay. So it's this fascinating book by a journalist from somewhere. And he's written this book about, we've got a lot of books about self-help and how to make $1 million and, your millionaire mind and all that stuff. And this book's more about people who are $30 million net worth and up. And so people who are getting into more serious wealth where, it talks about, there's a couple different colleges for butlers that teach you how to, household manager is, I think, the term now, where you learn how to manage a household for rich people, basically. And it talks about Palm Beach and some of the parties that goes down there and the money that they spend on, you can have a $150,000 car and people laugh at you because, they think it's a cheap piece of crap because they're driving a, Ferrari or a Lamborghini or a Rolls Royce or something like that. And so it's been a really interesting look into how, people with a lot of money, they do think quite differently. So there's a lot of different rules of the game that happen once you get into the higher echelons of wealth or society or money, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it totally changes, right? Perception is quite a bit different. The internet world is a bit unique in which, in San Francisco, no one cares, right? But it's not really like that everywhere.
Okay. Well, because in San Francisco, you've got, because of the startups and everything, there's so much money there already, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, well, people don't care how they dress in San Francisco, right? They don't really judge people based on it. There's a ton of successful people there that wear shorts and T-shirts.
That's true.
Even my son, he doesn't dress that nice, and he doesn't care to dress nice, right? So
it's kind of like that startup uniform. Mark Zuckerberg, I'm reading a book about him right now. They'll turn up to business meetings with investors who are going to drop $10 million investment in the company, and they turn up in jeans and a T-shirt and a hoodie.
Exactly, right? That is their startup uniform. They like it.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially if it works. But it's interesting though. It's funny too. I was having this conversation with a friend maybe a week or two ago. He was in LA, and he wanted to go and have the experience of what it would be like to buy a really expensive watch. So he went into probably I can't remember what the store was called, somewhere in LA, and goes in there and finds. I think he was looking at watches for probably $30,000 or $40,000 and trying them on and just seeing how it felt and chatting to the salesman. But then when he finally came out of the store and sent me a message on Facebook, he was going on and on about this watch, which was I think it was $830,000. So more than most people spend on more than most people spend on a house. And at the time, I was like, well, it doesn't even make sense. Who would spend 830 grand on a watch? That's just silly. I'd rather buy a few cars or something, or go and go to Antarctica and go on some adventure. But then I read this post, and it's like, all right, well maybe you buy an $800,000 watch, and you're going to go and close it and say a $10 million deal. Maybe it's a good decision.
And then it all works out. It's a question of, can you get in front of the right people, right? Because so like I have expensive watches that are in the six figures, nowhere near that high. I think the most expensive watch I have is probably like 150, 170 grand, something like that.
Yeah.
And when it comes to like expensive watches, the more expensive they are, it's usually most people don't even know about them. Because expensive watches, most of the brands, they're not too flashy. So it's like all my expensive watches look like they were like $1,000 max. But it's kind of funny. Like you could potentially close a huge deal because if the right person knows you have it, like, oh, this guy's someone. Because not just the cost of the watch, those watches are also extremely hard to get. Like I was trying to buy this Patek Philippe watch that was I think like $600,000 or $700,000, and I was trying to get it on the secondhand market because people don't really wear them. So when they have them, they may have worn them like 10 times, and the value of the price goes down by like 50%, right? So like I was trying to get one of these on the second market because I knew if I ended up getting one, due to the fact that I know the right people and I could put myself in the right meetings, whatever it may be, I can probably close a really huge deal from it.
Yeah. Okay. Did you end up getting the watch?
So like, no, the guy wanted $500,000 for it, and I was trying to get it for $300,000.
Okay.
So this negotiation, he was going through a divorce, and he needed money right away. And I'm like, look, I'll wire you the money right now. I'll do it for $300,000 because he's not going to be able to move it for $500,000 quickly, right? And he needed the cash, and I was like, I'll bring you the cash today, right? Like you'll have it in your account, but he wouldn't do it.
I wondered too, like. It'd be so interesting to wear these watches like that. What happened when you first started doing this? Was it a weird feeling?
Well, I've always been a watch guy. I've been collecting them for years, so I've had nice watches for a long time. I never mentioned that part in the blog post, right? Like I have a ton of them, but it's funny. Like they work in all aspects, personal life or business life. Like it's funny. I know I have a specific gold watch. It's tacky. But when I wear it on dates, like it makes it so much easier to do well on the date.
Are you serious?
I'm probably dating the wrong people. Yeah, I kid you. Right? Yesterday night, some girl was like, "This is a beautiful watch," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's just rose gold." She doesn't know what the hell it is. Like, it's a traditional watch. It's Breguet, but she has no clue what it is, right?
Yeah.
She just looks at it and she's like, "Rose gold. It must be expensive." And the funny thing is like the watch was decently expensive. I think it was like 20 something or 30,000 or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But if I wore like one of my fancy watches, $100,000, the girl probably would have had no clue what it was. Yeah. And either way, it doesn't matter if I watch, right? Usually, it doesn't make that much of a difference. But depending on who you're dating, some people are really superficial here in America, right? So it's like I'm just playing off of people, and for me it's all fun experimentation. Like recently, I haven't done a blog post on it. I should though. I got a helicopter, right? So the helicopter has been closing me more deals than anything else. It's kind of like crazy. People are like, you have a helicopter? Because I don't drive, and I got it for pennies on the dollar. I'll end up breaking down the price in the blog post.
Okay.
But yeah, like it's really funny. It's cheaper than a Ferrari, right? And I got a weird, unique deal, so it's cheaper for me than it would be for others. But in general, they cost more.
So is this your flight into a meeting?
Like, the amount of deals. What was that?
Will you fly it into him? You'll be like, all right, I'll be there in 10 minutes. Is there someone to park my chopper around there? And they.
Nothing. No one's ever seen the helicopter other than like friends have used it. Some people have taken pictures. I have no pictures with it. Yeah. But what's happened is word spread really fast that I have a helicopter, right? And it's funny because like people will be like, "Hey, they'll be like, oh, I got this Ferrari, yada yada. I got this Lamborghini," and I don't really say anything. But eventually, people end up finding out. They were just like, "I heard you have a helicopter. Feel like you have a helicopter?" Because that's like rare, right? Who the hell has one? And like, oh, you know how to fly? And I'm like, oh, I got a pilot. The pilot takes me wherever I want to go. So people just think it's funny, and like more people want to work with me. Like, how successful must you be if you have a helicopter, right? That's what goes through people's mind.
That's very cool. The next thing is going to have to be like a private jet.
Yeah, private jets are expensive, right? You need to be worth like $500 million to $1 billion to really get one.
Really
you can get one a lot earlier, but you're just blowing money.
Well,
I'm just really.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was looking on a site that sells these kind of goods, these kind of vehicles. You can pick up a little, I think it's called a Cessna or whatever, like it's one of those small 4-seater planes for $80,000. I don't know if that would really get the image across, but maybe it would.
No, I want like a G5, right? Like a proper.
You like a Gulfstream?
Yeah, like a Warren Buffett type of plane. Like those are expensive, but they're great.
Yeah. I remember reading actually in this Richardstown book. It talked about how Gulfstreams are the most expensive planes on the private market. You can actually go and buy a 737, which is a lot bigger than a Gulfstream, and it's cheaper than the Gulfstream though. So you can have this big, you can fit like 30 or 40 people or 50 people on this plane, and it's cheaper than a Gulfstream. So maybe that's an option.
The Google. So Larry and Sergey, they both own 737s.
Yeah, that was the story in the book. So I wonder how much you can buy
the
one for.
The problem with the 737s are in the private market, there's a ton of small airports. You can't land those at these small airports. That's a big problem with them. So the reason the Gulfstreams are great is because there's so many small airports next to like residential areas that most people don't know about. They're not noisy. It's very rare that planes take off from. But when you have a small private plane like a Gulfstream, you can go in and out of them. You got a 737, you have to land at a major airport, which has more traffic. You have to do roundabouts right in the air. Like it's just more headache getting in and out.
That's true. That's a good point. But I just imagine the parties, man. You could probably have a couple king size beds up in there if you had a 737 and a boardroom. You'd have a lot of space up there.
So, I definitely agree with you on that one. But like, yeah, it's so it's like I also tried this recent experiment too. My buddy and I, we were at this party at Palms Casino in Las Vegas, and one of our friends, she's a bottle service girl at one of the nightclubs.
Yeah.
So all her friends were there as well, and there were some guys. And my buddy came up with this idea. He's like, dude, he's just like, how well do you think people knowing that you have a helicopter would actually affect like perception and brand? So for the first half of the party, I just walked around, casually talked to people just to see what would happen, right? Yeah. Nothing happened. People were just like, oh, cool, just another dude, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Then the second half, my buddy would go around, he'd be like, yeah, he's like, oh, have you met my buddy Neil? And like he would do this while I'm on the other side of the room. And they're like, no, they're like, yeah, this guy, because when they were talking, like, oh, we live in Vegas. I'm like, yeah, I live in Vegas as well. My buddy Neil's like, lives in the same buildings. And they're like, oh, who's Neil? They're like, oh, you haven't met Neil? And he'll slip in the fact that I have a helicopter. And you'd be shocked on the amount of people that are lined up and they'll just be like, oh, I want to meet him. Or what does he do? Or like, it's just hilarious on how like people perceive things. And it's funny because it's like, what they don't realize is I would never date anyone who knew I had that kind of stuff because they're dating you for the wrong reasons. But it's just funny how little things affect how people perceive you and what they're willing to do.
Right. That would be fascinating. Do you actually fly this helicopter around very often, or is it more it's a perception thing?
I don't. So I have it in LA.
Yeah.
And it's like think of it like NetJets, right? Where you're renting hours. I'm renting hours on a helicopter. And the reason I have it is because I go to LA a lot, and my dad lives in Orange County with traffic and everything. It's a pain in the butt to get to him.
Yep.
So I'll use it so I can see my dad more often than anything else. And also from the airport, I can go directly into the helicopter and it'll land me right on top of the hotel. So I miss traffic, which is the best part about it. The flip side is it's like once people find out you have it, their judgment or how they perceive you changes, and in some aspects it'd be good, but in most ways what I found is like it's bad because then people start wanting to be around you or be your friend just because they think you have money.
Okay. So that would probably be the dark side of some of this stuff. When you start playing around with, more expensive clothes and cars and helicopters and jets. It starts, so you get the good side of it when you make more money, but then, it tends to attract the wrong kind of people. So you probably have to be probably a little bit strict with or careful with who you spend your time with and who you bring, or which people you tell about it.
Yeah. And I tend not to tell anyone in my personal life, right?
Yeah.
So in my personal life, most people don't know. They assume I have money based on how I dress or how I hold myself in conversations. But they don't know how much or where I live or any of that. And I tend not to ever bring that kind of stuff up. The web knows, on the internet, there's more about me than people know my personal life. Reason being is that people read my blogs are like internet-based people, right? Entrepreneurs. And it's like, they're not going to judge me. They're just going to be like, oh, cool, awesome experiment. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Yeah. So what about, because I was thinking, like, in your social circle, these are people who don't really, you don't bring this stuff up. I suppose you don't really go and Google your friends, but so it sounds like they could if they wanted to go and, find out who you are or what you do. But you just find that most of them don't.
Yeah, most of them don't. I try not to mention anything. And it's funny, like the helicopter, my assistant says it's his. Like, I don't care, right? He's taken a few girls on dates and he'll be like, yeah, check out my helicopter. Like, you can tell whoever you want. And he loves it because it helps him close. Like, I've never taken a girl on the helicopter, right? He's taken them on many times. Yeah. And it's funny because it's like it costs me money every time he uses it. So, but at least he's having fun with it.
Right. I mean, there's two aspects to it, right? Like, you wouldn't want to meet, say, a life partner or, you're probably a serious life partner with that kind of way. But if you just, feeling a bit lonely and want some company, I mean, why not?
Yeah, like I would have never worn the gold watch to the date yesterday if I knew I would ever do anything serious with her, right? Yeah. So it's like, I'm not interested in a relationship with her.
Yeah, interesting.
I'm not saying I did anything either way, but I'm just saying all that stuff helps, right?
Yeah. It's interesting, man. One thing I wanted to ask as well, which is slightly different topic from all the clothes stuff, is how to go from, it's a lot of people get into consulting in some way, and they're doing, I think you mentioned a guy who's charging, an SEO guy might charge, say, $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month. So one thing I was curious about is how does someone go from charging, say, a couple grand a month like that to going and doing deals for $500,000 or $250,000 or even $1 million? What's the transition period like?
So you're saying, how does someone go from getting small deals to like a multi-million-dollar deal, correct?
Yeah, anywhere up from, say, six-figure deals and up. How do you go from the small ones to six figures and up deals?
It's the pitch. It has nothing to do with what you're wearing or any of that. I've got it nailed down pretty well because I've pitched so many times. But it comes down to, what are you offering? Yeah. So when you tell a business, like, hey, I can help you make X dollars conservatively, here are the projections, and here's how I came about the numbers, and people believe them because, like, hopefully they're accurate, it's not hard to close a deal. Like, I remember I went into a diamond company and I said, hey, here's your quarterly earnings. Here's your, and they were providing some stats. I'm like, here's how many visitors you get on your website. Here's how many sales you generate. Here's your, average conversion rates. Here's the average spend per customer. Here's what it costs you to acquire a customer, etc. And I was like, I think you can conservatively increase your traffic by X amount with the current numbers. With your search traffic, here's how many more conversions you would get. Here's your cost. Here's your cost of the product. Here's your profit. And I broke down conservative, medium, and aggressive estimates on what I can do. When you're pitching someone like that and you're pitching them $1 million, like it's not that hard because at that point they're like, all right, you actually think you can move my needle, for $1 million, you're telling me you can drive me extra $50 million a quarter in revenue, right? Like it's not hard. It's just math at that point. And that's how you close these bigger deals.
Yeah. Okay. That's actually what I've been getting that answer from a few people that I've asked this question to. Which is, you just go to the numbers, look at what return you're going to produce for them, and then quote them something that's a percentage of that. Do you have a rule where you say, all right, if the projection is, say, on a conservative estimate, we're going to do $50 million this quarter, so the price is going to be, 1 in 50, $1 million. Do you have? It's going to be 10% of your projection. How do you work that out?
So you're saying on what I charge, or?
Yeah. So like, let's say. What do you mean? So it's kind of like, so when you work out, all right, here's the projections, here's the lifetime value, here's the conversion rate, here's what we could do, here's your, conservative and aggressive estimates. And then you go, so where does the price, how do you calculate the price based off that? Because the price is obviously based on the return you're going to get for them, right?
The price is whatever I think I can end up charging them.
Okay. But then but that's based on how much you think you're going to make for them, right?
But also what I think I can get approved budget-wise.
Okay. And then so how do you figure that out?
I always ask them, I'm like, hey, so what are you looking to spend on marketing? And a lot of times they'll give me vague answers. I'm like, well, you probably have some sort of budget. Like, is it $100 a month or is it 10 million bucks, right? I'm like, what type of budget or what type of money do you think you can allocate? They'll be like, oh, we already use up our budget. I'm like, well, what resources do you think you can get when you know, pull together some extra funds from different departments or whatever? So I just keep prying until I get an answer. And then I try to price it within that range. I try to actually get really close to it and juice up all the money.
That's very smart, man.
That's my pitch. Not much more to it.
And then, so how did you even get into this? Because you've been doing, I mean, you got Hello Bar and Kissmetrics and that. Did the consulting just come off the back of that? People had seen the success with the companies and just said, hey, can you do what you did for, you know, those companies? Can you do that for me too? Is that how this all started?
No, it was the opposite. I used to own a consulting agency before I created any of those software companies. I've been doing consulting for over 10 years. And I don't do much consulting, so it actually makes it really easy for me to pitch people. Because I'm like, look, I don't really take on too many clients. I'm like, you either want to work together or you don't. And I get over 5,000 consulting leads a month.
Yeah. Wow.
Like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not hard for me to tell people. Like, at this point, I'm just like, hey, here's my price. If I like your company, maybe I'll work with you.
Okay.
And that's it.
These
days, I don't even have to trust.
Okay, that's funny that I thought, because I thought it was the other way around. It was the software and then the consulting, but now this is the consulting and then the software. Interesting.
No, and I try to do games and I get bored too, right? So I had a pitch earlier today, and I told my buddy, he was on the phone with me, he's one of my employees, and I was just like, hey, how funny would it be if I closed this call without even paying attention, right? Okay. And we tried making a game out of it. I'm like, all right, so we were chatting on GChat. I'm like, I bet you I can close this deal even without paying attention to what they're saying.
And so what happened?
So I'll find out tomorrow, but I'm pretty sure I closed them. They're like, all right, send the proposal, we'll sign it today. So until it's signed and money's wired, who knows?
Right, okay. But so what do you mean you weren't paying attention? Were you just sitting there like chatting away on GChat?
Yeah, we were just chatting away on GChat. But keep in mind, I already knew their business and did all my research. So pretty much whatever they said, I would not pay attention to it. And I would tell them what they should be doing to their business to grow it, right? So it's like, think of it as almost a one-way conversation. And I was still making it flow, right? So, but they were loving it.
They were loving it.
But I get bored, so I do things like for fun. And I'm like, all right, let's try a new challenge.
Yeah. Okay, what's the next challenge?
I don't know. Oh, I'm trying to make money off of bus ads.
Bus ads? You mean like, so you put an ad on the side of a bus? Man, okay.
Yeah, or on the bus stop that says like, stop sitting on my face, neilpatel.com. And I want to actually see if I can make that cash flow positive. I think I can. Okay. I'm kind of creative.
What's it cost what's a bus ad cost to get one of those, stop sitting on my face?
I'm going to spend $40,000 for 1 month worth of bus ads. A lot of them.
Yeah. Okay. And then how do you track the ROI on something like that?
I'll give them a unique landing page or see if I can get any increased revenue, or people say like, hey, I saw your bus ad or whatever. Yeah. It'll be funny. Worst case, I lose $40,000.
That'll be good, man. It'll be another good blog post.
Yeah. But I think I'm a bit too creative sometimes.
I like it, man. To be honest, like it's only been recently when I've seen some of these posts come out, like how I spent all this money on clothes, maybe this, and how I bought a Ferrari, and they're interesting posts because it's not, your classic, marketing vlog is just going to be, 7 ways to do this, and 11 tips here, and 15 mistakes here. It gets very repetitive. So, not everyone's running around spending $160,000 on clothes and then writing a blog post about it. That's a little bit trickier. You can't just sit down and write it, spend an hour writing a blog post to do that. So, it's cool, man. I think a lot of people like it too. I mean, you probably know that. So yeah, no, a lot of people they like it. So cool. All right, man. We're right on time. So before we go, if someone wants to look you up and read some of these blog posts, maybe hire you for consulting, where's the best place for them to go? Is it quicksprout.com or?
Yep, quicksprout.com, and just go to the contact page.
Cool. And then you also got neilpatel.com. You go. I think there's a consulting tab there as well. You get the blog and all that. So that's very cool. There's tons of great posts here, man. So I'll get a link up on the show notes page on the McMethod.com to this how spending $162,000 on clothes, maybe $692,000. That'd be a cool post to look up. So Neil, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening. If you want to discover more insider tips, tricks, and secrets about driving sales with email marketing, sign up for daily email tips from the Autoresponder Guy. Go to dropdeadcopy.com/podcast. Sign up, confirm your email address, and I'll send you daily emails on how to improve your email marketing and make more sales via email. You'll find out why open rates don't matter and the 7-letter word that underlies all effective marketing and much more.